What if I told you that your great-great-grandfather was a millionaire and they burned him alive for it? Not because he committed a crime, not because he was dangerous, but because he owned more land than any white man in America. His banks held millions. His name was on 30 properties across an entire city. But you'll never find him in history books, because in 1921, being a wealthy black man wasn't just dangerous, it was a death sentence. And he wasn't alone. 4 other families, same fate, same silence, same systematic erasure from every record, every textbook, every memory. This is the story they never wanted you to hear, but today that silence ends. You've been taught that black people were slaves, then sharecroppers, then servants, struggling to survive. What you weren't taught is that between the 1500s and 1920s, black families built economic empires so powerful they terrified the people who claimed to be superior. From African kingdoms that controlled the resources Europe desperately needed, to American entrepreneurs who owned entire city blocks, these families didn't just survive the system, they beat it. They became richer than the people oppressing them, and that became their crime. Because when a people's wealth threatens the narrative of their inferiority, that wealth must be destroyed, not just taken, erased. Libraries burned to ash, property deeds stolen in the night, entire families murdered in their beds, names scraped off maps as if they never existed. After this video, you will never see black history the same way again. This isn't about the past. This is about right now. Because those stolen millions are connected to biblical prophecy about restoration. I'm going to show you who profited from the erasure, how they did it, why it connects to the curses written in Deuteronomy chapter 28, and what is about to return. Your ancestors weren't victims, they were millionaires. And that truth changes everything about who you are. This truth has been hidden for centuries in burned libraries, sealed archives, and erased textbooks. But the Bible says in Luke chapter 8 verse 17, "For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." Today it ends. 5 families, 5 fortunes, all erased. But before I show you the horrifying details of how they destroyed these empires, you need to understand something that will shake you to your core. This wasn't random violence. This was prophesied, word for word, detail for detail, thousands of years before it happened. Open your Bible to Deuteronomy chapter 28. This chapter contains blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience given to the children of Israel. Now listen carefully to verse 29. The Lord says, "Thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore." Spoiled means robbed, continuously robbed, not once, not occasionally, evermore, generation after generation after generation. Does that sound familiar? Hold that thought. Verse 30 says, "Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. You will build it with your own hands, pour your sweat and blood into it, and then you won't get to live in it. Someone else will take it." Remember that, because in a few minutes, I'm going to show you a man who built a 54-room hotel, the largest black-owned building in the entire United States of America, and they burned it to the ground with his children inside while he watched. Verses 43 and 44 say, "The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." Economic reversal. Foreigners in your land will gain more and more power, while you gradually lose yours. They will have money to lend you, but you will have none to lend them. That's not just prophecy. That's the exact pattern of what happened to every single black millionaire family I'm about to show you. They built wealth foreigners, took it, redistributed it to themselves, and left the descendants with nothing. But here's the verse that will stop your heart. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again, with ships by the way, whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Egypt means bondage, slavery. And God said his people would return to slavery in ships, not by land, in ships, the Atlantic slave trade, millions of Africans packed into ships and sold to their enemies. And the final phrase, no man shall buy you, means no one will redeem you. No one will pay to set you free. These aren't random verses. This is the exact pattern. Build wealth, have it stolen, be sold again. No one redeems you. Pause and reflect on this for a moment. Let that sink in. The Bible predicted wealthy black people would have everything stolen. And it happened. Exactly. Down to the smallest detail. Now let me show you the faces. Let me show you the names. Let me show you the fortunes that vanished. Let's start with the man from the beginning, the one whose children burned. The Stradford dynasty. His name was J.B. Stradford. He arrived in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1899 with $3 in his pocket and a law degree nobody would honor because of the color of his skin. So he did what he had to do. He worked, he saved, he built, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. By 1921, just 22 years later, J.B. Stradford owned the Stradford Hotel, a magnificent 54-room building that towered over Tulsa's Greenwood district. But that was just the beginning. His family controlled rental properties across the entire district. They owned businesses. They held land worth $4 million. That's over $60 million in today's money. Let me say that again. $60 million. He employed dozens of people. His children attended the finest schools. His family lived in a mansion that made white Tulsans sick with envy every time they drove past it. The Greenwood district wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a declaration. Over 600 black-owned businesses generated millions of dollars annually. Black doctors, black lawyers, black pilots, black oil barons. They called it Black Wall Street, and it was more prosperous than most white towns in Oklahoma. J.B. Stradford stood at the center of it all, a living contradiction to everything white supremacy claimed about black inferiority, and white Tulsa watched and seethed. Because how dare these people, these former slaves, these supposed inferiors, drive nicer cars, build taller buildings, and send their children to better schools? It was unbearable, intolerable. Something had to be done. On May 31st, 1921, something was. A white mob surrounded the Stradford Hotel. J.B. was inside with his family, his wife, his children, his grandchildren. They could hear the crowd outside growing larger, angrier, chanting for blood. Then came the gunshots, then the torches, then the screams. The mob set the building ablaze, floor by floor, room by room. Women and children screamed from windows trapped by flames and bullets. J.B. tried to fight back, tried to save his family. But what can one man do against 1,000? Then the planes came. Actual airplanes dropping firebombs on American citizens in an American city. The first aerial bombing of a domestic target in United States history wasn't against foreign enemies. It was against black wealth. Let me repeat that, because it's so horrifying you might not believe it. The first time America dropped bombs from airplanes on its own soil was not to stop terrorists. It was to destroy black millionaires. J.B. escaped through the chaos, with some of his grandchildren running through streets that had become a war zone. When he looked back, everything was burning. Every deed, every dollar, every dream. 35 blocks of black prosperity turned to ash in less than 24 hours. Over 300 black people murdered, 10,000 left homeless. And J.B. Stradford, one of the richest black men in America, became a fugitive. He fled to Chicago, accused of inciting a riot, as if defending your family from a murderous mob makes you the criminal. His insurance company refused to pay a single cent. The city of Tulsa seized his property. His hotel, the symbol of everything he'd built, was demolished. They paved it over. A parking lot now sits where black millionaires once walked. Think about that. A parking lot. People park their cars on top of the ashes of a $60 million fortune. J.B. Stradford died in 1935, broken and penniless. He was finally exonerated in 1996. That's 61 years after his death. His family never recovered a single dollar of their stolen wealth, not one penny. And here's the truly evil part that will make your blood boil. Oklahoma removed the Tulsa Massacre from history textbooks for 75 years. An entire generation of black children grew up not knowing their city had once been the wealthiest black community in America. J.B. Stradford's name appeared in history books only as a criminal who started a riot. His grandchildren grew up not knowing their grandfather had been one of America's richest men. The erasure was complete. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 30. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. J.B. Stradford built a 54-room hotel. He didn't get to dwell in it. They burned it. Prophecy fulfilled. But hold on, because what I'm about to show you next will prove this wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern, a system, and it goes back further than you ever imagined. Now let's talk about a family you think you know, but don't. Everyone's heard of Sally Hemings, Thomas Jefferson's enslaved mistress. But here's what they don't teach in school. The Hemings family didn't just serve Thomas Jefferson. They ran his entire economic empire. They were master craftsmen, elite chefs, skilled managers who kept Monticello functioning. And when Jefferson died drowning in debt, it was Hemings' family labor, worth millions, that had kept him afloat for decades. James Hemings was Sally's older brother. Thomas Jefferson took him to Paris and paid for him to train under French master chefs, one of the finest culinary educations money could buy. In the 1780s, James learned techniques that didn't exist in America yet. He mastered French cuisine, wine pairing, pastry arts. When he returned to Virginia, he introduced macaroni and cheese creme brulee and French fries to America. Yes, those French fries. James Hemings invented American French fry culture. His skills were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he earned nothing. Zero. He was property. His brother John was a master carpenter whose furniture was so exquisite it sold for premium prices, with Jefferson's name on it, not John's. Their sister Sally managed Jefferson's entire household, supervised staff, maintained records. She knew where every dollar went, every debt owed, every secret hidden. If this family had been free and compensated fairly for their labor and intellectual property, they would have accumulated a fortune equivalent to $50 million in today's money. $50 million from one family's skills. But here's where it gets darker, and this is where you need to pay close attention, because this connects to something sinister. When James was in Paris, he was legally free under French law. He could have stayed. He could have become the most famous chef in Europe. His talent was that extraordinary. But Jefferson manipulated him with a promise. Come back to Virginia, train your brother to replace you, and then I'll free you. James believed him. He came back. He trained his brother. And in 1796, Jefferson finally freed him. But freedom came with a cost. James had spent years back in slavery after tasting liberty. Imagine that. You're legally free in Paris. You taste what it means to be a human being with rights. Then you voluntarily return to chains because you believe a promise. The psychological damage was devastating. He tried to build a life, tried to use his skills, But America in 1796 wasn't ready for a black master chef to receive the recognition he deserved. In 1801, James Hemings was found dead. The official story, suicide. He was 36 years old. But historians now believe he was murdered. Why? Because James knew things. He knew Jefferson's secrets. He knew the truth about Sally, about the children, about the lies Jefferson told the world. And his culinary innovations were making him famous in his own right. He was becoming inconvenient, so he died. Conveniently. The Hemings family's economic contributions were meticulously documented in Jefferson's records. He tracked everything they did, every skill they demonstrated, every innovation they created. Then those records were buried in archives for 200 years. Sally was remembered only as a victim, never as the sophisticated manager who ran Monticello. James's culinary revolution was credited to Thomas Jefferson himself. American history books taught that Jefferson brought French cuisine to America, when it was actually an enslaved black man who never got a penny or even a footnote. DNA testing in 1998 finally proved what the Hemings family had been saying for 2 centuries. Yes, Jefferson fathered Sally's children. The mainstream media treated it like a scandal. But here's the real scandal. If James Hemings had been paid fairly for his recipes and innovations, if his family had been free to accumulate wealth and pass it down, their descendants would be millionaires today. Instead, they got nothing, not even their names in the history books. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 29. Thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, robbed continuously. The Hemings family created millions in value, robbed of every cent. Generation after generation, their descendants inherit nothing. Prophecy fulfilled. But before you think this only happened in America, let me take you across the ocean to a kingdom you've never heard of. A kingdom so sophisticated it rivaled Europe, and they erased it so completely, you'll be shocked it ever existed. Let's go back to 1506. The Kingdom of Congo in Central Africa. This wasn't some tribal village like your textbooks implied. This was a sophisticated nation with a capital city, Mbanza, Congo, that housed 100,000 people. That's larger than London at the time. Let that sink in. An African city larger than London in 1506. King Afonso. I wasn't a tribal chief. He was a Catholic monarch who spoke fluent Portuguese, maintained diplomatic relations with the Pope in Rome, and controlled trade networks spanning 3 continents. His kingdom exported copper ivory and textiles worth millions in Renaissance currency. His family lived in stone palaces. They wore imported silks. They governed using written law codes. This was a peer to European nations, not a subordinate. Portuguese traders arrived and Afonso welcomed them as partners. Cultural exchange, trade agreements, mutual respect. But the Portuguese wanted one thing Afonso wouldn't give them enough of: enslaved people. When Afonso realized Portuguese agents were kidnapping his citizens, including members of the nobility, he wrote desperate letters to the King of Portugal and the Pope himself, begging them to stop. Listen to his words, written in 1526. We cannot reckon how great the damage is, because these thieves and men of bad conscience grab our people wishing to have the things and wares of this kingdom. Every day the traitors are taking our natives, sons of the land, and the sons of our noblemen and vassals. He documented everything: the kidnappings, the betrayals, the destruction of his kingdom's social fabric. He appealed to Christian morality, to international law, to basic human decency. His letters were received, filed, and completely ignored. Portugal armed Afonso's enemies instead. They funded rebellions. They encouraged civil wars. By 1568, the Kingdom of Congo had fractured into competing factions, all weakened, all vulnerable. Portuguese slavers raided with impunity. Mbanza, Congo, once a gleaming capital of stone buildings and bustling markets, became a ruin, and Afonso's family, once royalty, were captured and sold. Think about that for a moment. Let it truly register. One generation lives in a palace, writes letters to the Pope, as an equal dines with Portuguese ambassadors. The next generation is chained in a ship's hold, bound for Brazilian sugar plantations. Royal blood spilled in fields owned by the descendants of the men their grandfather called friends. For 400 years, those letters sat in Vatican and Lisbon archives, unread, ignored. European historians wrote that Afonso was a puppet king, that he invited the slave trade, that African kingdoms had no real sophistication. His kingdom was reduced to tribal in textbooks. His legacy was erased. Those letters were finally rediscovered in the 1960s during African independence movements. Suddenly, historians had proof. African kingdoms didn't welcome slavery. They were betrayed. They fought back. They documented their resistance. But by then, generations had been taught that Africa had no history worth remembering, no civilizations worth studying, no wealth worth acknowledging. The erasure was so complete that when archaeologists finally excavated sites in Congo in the 2000s, people were shocked to find stone foundations, sophisticated urban planning, and evidence of international trade. Shocked. As if Africans building cities was impossible. As if black people creating wealth was unthinkable. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Afonso's grandchildren, royal descendants, were brought into slavery in ships, sold to their enemies, and no man bought them out. No one redeemed them. No one paid to set them free. Prophecy fulfilled, down to the exact detail. But the story gets even more shocking when you see what happened when black people actually won their freedom and built their own nation. Let's travel to Haiti, 1804. The only successful slave revolution in human history has just happened. Enslaved Africans defeated Napoleon's army, the greatest military force on earth, and declared independence. Leading them was a man named Henri Christophe, born enslaved, who became a general, then a king. King Henri Christophe wasn't playing around. He understood that freedom meant nothing without power, and power meant nothing without symbols. He built the Citadelle La Ferrière, a fortress so massive you can see it from space. Constructed with stones carried up mountains by hand, it cost $200 million in today's money. He built Sans Souci Palace, modeled after Versailles, to prove that black royalty could rival European monarchs. He established schools, hospitals, a national currency, and a standing army of 40,000 soldiers. His family controlled northern Haiti like a sovereign nation with gold reserves that made France nervous. Think about what that means. France, one of the most powerful nations on earth, was nervous about a black king's gold reserves. But white nations couldn't allow it. A prosperous black nation was too dangerous to exist. America refused to recognize Haiti's independence for 60 years. 60 years. France demanded Haiti pay them for the loss of property. What property? Enslaved people. They demanded Haiti pay compensation for freeing themselves, and they threatened re-invasion if Haiti didn't comply. Britain imposed crushing trade embargoes. Haiti's economy, which should have thrived, was being strangled. Not because it failed, because it succeeded. The mere existence of a free, prosperous black nation was intolerable to every slave-holding power in the Western world. By 1820, Christophe was facing betrayal from within his own government and invasion from the south. He suffered a stroke that partially paralyzed him. His enemies were closing in, ready to capture him and parade him through the streets as a defeated black king. A lesson to any enslaved person who dared dream of freedom. Henri Christophe refused to give them that satisfaction. He loaded a silver bullet into a pistol, placed it against his heart, and pulled the trigger. He died standing in his palace crown on his head, on his own terms. His wife, Queen Marie-Louise, and their children fled to Italy with whatever gold they could carry. France seized his palaces. His economic systems were deliberately dismantled. And here's how they erased him. Haiti's history books written by foreign powers and hostile neighbors painted Henri Christophe as a mad tyrant, a despot, a cautionary tale about what happens when slaves get power. They never mentioned his schools, his hospitals, his vision for a free black nation that needed no white saviors. The Citadel still stands today, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Tourists visit and take pictures, but nobody tells them it represents the wealth of a black monarchy that rivaled Europe. Sans Souci Palace was destroyed by an earthquake in 1842 and never rebuilt. Almost like nature itself conspired in the erasure. Christophe's descendants live in obscurity today, scattered across Europe and the Americas. They have no wealth, no kingdom, no recognition, and that was the point. Because if Haiti had been allowed to prosper, if Christophe's economic model of free black labor and self-sufficiency had succeeded, it would have inspired every enslaved population in the Americas. It would have proven that black people didn't need white masters to thrive. That terrified every slave-holding nation on earth. So they crushed it and erased it and taught generations that Haiti was always poor, always struggling, never mentioning that its poverty was deliberately manufactured through debt embargoes and sabotage. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verses 43 and 44. The stranger shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. France forced Haiti into debt. Haiti, the nation that defeated Napoleon, was forced to borrow money and come down very low. Prophecy fulfilled. But wait, because there's one more family you need to know about. And this one will show you that even when black people won their freedom through military victory, the system found a way to steal it back. And they did it with something quieter than violence. They did it with paperwork. Let's travel to Jamaica in the early 1700s. Captain Cudjoe was an escaped enslaved man who did something extraordinary. He didn't just run and hide. He built a free black nation in the mountains, not hiding, governing. By 1739, his Maroon community controlled 1,500 square miles of Jamaican territory. Think about that. 1,500 square miles. That's larger than Rhode Island. They had farms, livestock, manufacturing, trade networks with British colonists. They weren't just surviving. They were prospering. And they had an army that defeated British troops over and over again. The British sent regiment after regiment into those mountains, and Cudjoe's forces destroyed them all. Guerrilla warfare perfected. The British couldn't win. They tried for decades, failed every single time. So in 1739, exhausted and humiliated, Britain did something unprecedented. They signed a peace treaty recognizing Maroon sovereignty. Read that again. Britain, one of the most powerful empires on earth, signed a treaty with escaped enslaved people, recognizing them as a sovereign nation. Cudjoe's community was officially free, autonomous, and legally protected. The first free black society in the New World. Cudjoe's family accumulated wealth through crops trade and, yes, even arms dealing. They lived better than most British colonists, but the treaty had a poison pill buried in it. The Maroons had to return any newly escaped enslaved people to the plantations. Britain couldn't defeat the Maroons militarily, so they used law and psychology. They turned freedom fighters into slave catchers, dividing the black community against itself. It was brilliant and evil. Then came the slow erosion. British colonial authorities chipped away at Maroon land rights, year by year, decade by decade. Legal technicalities, boundary disputes, forced purchases. What started as 1,500 square miles shrank to tiny reservations. The wealth Cudjoe's family had built was slowly confiscated through paperwork and legal manipulation. Not violence this time. Lawyers. By the 1800s, Cudjoe's prosperous settlements were impoverished. His descendants still live in Jamaica today, but most don't know their ancestor built the first free black nation in the Americas. They don't know their family once controlled more land than any British sugar baron. They don't know they come from royalty, because that history was erased through something quieter than violence, legal bureaucracy and generational amnesia. They didn't need bullets this time, just lawyers and time. Deuteronomy chapter 28 verses 43 and 44. The stranger shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. 1,500 square miles down to reservations. Came down very low. Prophecy fulfilled. Now watch how all these stories connect into one undeniable pattern. Do you see it now? The pattern: 5 families, 5 different centuries, 5 different continents. But the same story every single time. They built empires. Those empires were destroyed through violence or betrayal. They documented their wealth. Those records were burned, buried, or conveniently lost. They had descendants who should have inherited everything. Those descendants were denied through legal theft, murder, or forced displacement. They proved black excellence was possible. So they were erased, because their existence contradicted the lie that white supremacy needed to survive. Here's the mathematical horror of it all. If just one of these families, say the Hemings, had been paid fairly and allowed to pass wealth down through generations like white families do, we're talking about a $50 million foundation in 1800. Compounded over 9 generations at a modest 3% growth rate, that's $700 million today. 700 million from one family. Multiply that by 5 families. Then remember, these are just 5 stories. There were hundreds, thousands. The Tulsa Massacre alone destroyed $200 million in 1921 wealth. That's $3 billion in today's money. 3 billion. From one city, one district, one day. Haiti's forced debt to France. $21 billion stolen directly from black hands. The Kingdom of Congo's wealth redirected to Portugal, incalculable. This wasn't poverty. This was the largest wealth theft in human history. And then they taught you the victims were poor because they didn't work hard enough. Every single biblical curse from Deuteronomy chapter 28 was fulfilled. Verse 29. Thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, always robbed. Check. Every family, every generation. Verse 30. Thou shalt build a house and not dwell therein. J.B. Stradford's hotel. Check. Verse 43. The stranger shall have money, and thou shalt have none. Wealth redistributed to oppressors' children who still benefit today. Check. Verse 68. Brought back to slavery in ships. Atlantic slave trade. Check. Every single curse. Every single detail. This isn't coincidence. This is prophecy fulfilled. And here's what keeps powerful people awake at night. These families weren't exceptional. They were ordinary black people given opportunity. J.B. Stradford started with $3. James Hemings started in chains. Henri Christophe started enslaved. Captain Cudjoe started as property. King Afonso inherited a kingdom, sure, but he was fighting European superpowers with everything he had. Imagine what millions more could have built if they'd been allowed. If their children had inherited what they'd earned. If their grandchildren had invested what their parents saved. If their great-grandchildren could have pointed to family histories of wealth and success instead of trauma and theft. J.B. Stradford's grandchildren should be billionaires today, controlling Tulsa real estate. Henri Christophe's descendants should lead Haiti's economy. The Hemings family should own Monticello and receive royalties every time someone makes French fries. King Afonso's lineage should govern a thriving Central African nation. Captain Cudjoe's Maroons should control Jamaican mountains and tourist industries. Instead, their wealth was redistributed to their oppressors' children, who inherited it, invested it, grew it, and still benefit from it today. Old money in America and Europe. Track it back far enough, and you'll find it's built on theft from families exactly like these. Every time someone says black people are poor because they don't work hard, show them J.B. Stradford, who built a hotel empire from $3 and watched it burn. Every time someone asks, "Where's Black Wall Street?" answer a parking lot. Because you burned it. Now let me take you on a journey through time. Let me show you how this connects to something deeper, something spiritual, something that was prophesied thousands of years before any of this happened. Because this isn't just history. This is biblical prophecy unfolding before your eyes. Go back to ancient Israel, the chosen people, the covenant with God, wealth and prosperity promised. The Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 12, verse 2, that God told Abraham, "I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great." Blessings, prosperity, greatness. That was the promise. But there was a condition. Obedience. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 and 2 say, "If thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee." But what happens when there's disobedience? Verse 15. "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." The curses were activated, and one of those curses was the prophecy we've been talking about. Verse 68. Brought back to slavery in ships, the Atlantic slave trade. Between the 1500s and 1800s, millions of Africans kidnapped, chained, packed into ships and sold. The exact fulfillment of prophecy. Ships, slavery, sold to enemies. No one redeems you. But here's what they don't teach in Sunday school. Even in slavery, black people built wealth. The Hemings family ran Jefferson's entire economic empire, worth millions. After slavery, there was an explosion. J.B. Stradford went from $3 to $4 million in 22 years. They weren't poor because they couldn't build wealth. They were exceptional at it. That's why it had to be destroyed. Because wealthy black people proved something that white supremacy couldn't allow. The whole system was a lie. Imagine standing in your hotel lobby. It's May 31st, 1921. You're J.B. Stradford. You hear the crowd outside growing. Thousands of voices, angry, violent. Your wife is upstairs, your children, your grandchildren. You built this building with your own hands. 54 rooms, from $3 to millions. Every brick paid for with sweat and sacrifice. You know what they're about to do. You can hear them chanting. You can smell the torches. And you know in your soul that they're coming because you dared to succeed. Because you proved they were wrong about you. About all of you. The fear, the rage, the helplessness, then the gunshots, then the flames, then the screams of your family. That's not ancient history. That was 1921, your great-grandfather's time. Or think about James Hemings in Paris, 1789. You're legally free. French law protects you. You're training under master chefs. Your skills are extraordinary. You could stay here. You could become famous, wealthy, respected. But Thomas Jefferson looks you in the eye and promises, "Come back. Train your brother. Then I'll free you." You believe him. So you leave freedom. You return to chains, voluntarily, because you believe a promise. Years pass. You train your brother. Finally, 1796. Jefferson keeps his word. You're free. But you've tasted liberty twice now, once in Paris, once in Virginia, and the psychological damage is devastating. You try to build a life. Try to use your skills. But America doesn't want a free black master chef. You become inconvenient. You know too many secrets. And in 1801, you're found dead. 36 years old. That hope killed you. The hope that a white man's promise meant something, or King Afonso in his palace. 1526. You're writing another letter, this time to the Pope himself. Surely the Pope will help. Surely the head of the Catholic Church will stop Portuguese slavers from kidnapping your people. You write with trembling hands. These thieves grab our people. Sons of noblemen. Please, Holy Father, make them stop. You send the letter. You wait. Months pass. No response. Years pass. Your kingdom is fracturing. Your nobles are being sold. Your own family members are disappearing. And then you realize, no one is coming. No one cares. You're black. They're white. And that's all that matters. 1 generation later, your grandchildren are in chains. Royal blood. In chains. 2 generations erased a kingdom. That's not just history. That's your family story. Because these weren't isolated incidents. This was systematic. This was prophesied. Deuteronomy chapter 28 curses operating in real time. Verse 30. Thou shalt build and not dwell therein. Stradford's hotel. Verse 29. Always oppressed and spoiled. Every family, every generation. Verse 43. Foreigners will have money, you will have none. Wealth redistributed to oppressors' children who still benefit today. The curse was active. Is active. But here's what they didn't plan for. Here's what terrifies them. The curses don't last forever, because the same Bible that predicted the theft also promises restoration. Now let me show you how they covered it up. Because understanding the theft is one thing, understanding the erasure is another, and the erasure is where the real evil lives. They didn't just steal wealth, they stole memory, they stole proof, they stole identity. Let me show you exactly how they did it. First, textbook erasure. Oklahoma removed the Tulsa Race Massacre from history textbooks for 75 years. 75 years. An entire generation of black children grew up not knowing their city had once been the wealthiest black community in America. J.B. Stradford appeared in history books only as a criminal who started a riot. Not as one of the richest men in America. As a criminal. His grandchildren didn't know. His great-grandchildren didn't know. They grew up believing their family had always been poor. The Kingdom of Congo was reduced to tribal in textbooks. A sophisticated kingdom with a capital larger than London, with written law codes with diplomatic relations to the Pope, reduced to tribal. When archaeologists excavated sites in Congo in the 2000s and found stone foundations, sophisticated urban planning evidence of international trade, people were shocked. Shocked that Africans built cities, as if black people creating wealth was impossible. That's how thorough the erasure was. They control education. They control memory. 3 generations and the truth is gone. Second, legal theft. After the Tulsa Massacre, insurance companies refused to pay black victims. Not 1 cent, not 1 penny. Policies that black families had paid into for years, denied. The city of Tulsa seized J.B. Stradford's property after he fled. Just took it, made it legal. Captain Cudjoe's Maroons lost 1,500 square miles through legal technicalities, boundary disputes, forced purchases. From 1,500 square miles to tiny reservations, all legal, all documented, all theft. Property deeds stolen in the night, made legal in the morning. They didn't just burn wealth, they made the theft legal. That's how you keep stolen money for generations. That's how descendants can't sue. Because it was legal confiscation. Follow the property. Tulsa land once owned by black millionaires. Who owns it now? White families, white corporations, white institutions, still profiting, still benefiting. Legal theft. Third archive suppression. King Afonso's letters to the Pope in Portugal. Filed, stored. Sat in Vatican and Lisbon archives unread for 400 years. 4 centuries. Proof that African kingdoms resisted slavery. Proof that they were betrayed. Proof that they documented everything. Hidden for 400 years. Rediscovered only in the 1960s during African independence movements. Why then? Because they couldn't hide it anymore. Jefferson's meticulous records of the Hemings family's contributions. Every skill documented. Every innovation tracked. Buried in archives for 200 years. DNA testing in 1998 finally proved what the Hemings family had been saying for 2 centuries. They were telling the truth. The whole time. But for 200 years, no one believed them. Because the archives were sealed. The evidence existed the whole time. They just made sure you couldn't access it. Who controls archives? Who decides what gets discovered and when? Think about that. 4th character assassination. J.B. Stradford. Accused of inciting a riot. His crime defending his family from a murderous mob. Made into a criminal. King Henri Christophe. History books painted him as a mad tyrant, a despot. Never mentioned his schools, his hospitals, his vision for a free black nation. Made into a villain. James Hemings. Official story suicide. But historians now believe murder. Why? Because he knew Jefferson's secrets. Was becoming inconvenient. Had to go. If you can't erase them, completely destroy their character. Make them villains in their own story. The pattern is clear. Black millionaire builds wealth. Something happens. They're blamed. They're criminalized. Wealth seized. Descendants inherit shame instead of fortune. Character assassination. Memory assassination. Wealth assassination. So who benefits from the lie old money families in America and Europe? Track it back far enough, and you'll find it's built on theft from families exactly like these. Stradford's Tulsa land. Who owns it now? Who profits from it now? Monticello. Tourists pay to see Jefferson's home. Who profits from those tours? Not Hemings' descendants. Haiti. Still paying the economic price of embargoes and forced debt imposed over 200 years ago. The same families that stole it still have it. Their children inherited it, invested it, grew it. Your children inherited trauma. But here's the psychological weapon they used, and this is the most sinister part. They made descendants forget they came from kings, queens, entrepreneurs, revolutionaries. Turned them into statistics about poverty. Fed them lies about why. You're poor because you don't work hard. When J.B. Stradford built a $4 million empire from $3. You're poor because you have no history of business success. When 600 black-owned businesses in Tulsa generated millions annually. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 28. The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Can't recognize the curses. Made to believe you're inferior. The greatest theft wasn't money. It was making you believe you were never meant to have money. Making you forget you came from millionaires. Making you accept poverty as normal. That's the weapon. Generational amnesia. Spiritual blindness. Identity theft. But here's what they didn't count on. Here's what's happening right now that terrifies the system. You can't burn truth forever. Ashes still spell names. DNA doesn't forget. Stories survive in whispers until someone shouts them. And right now, all over this nation, all over this world, people are waking up. The alarm is going off, and they can't hit snooze anymore. You are not a victim. You need to hear this and let it sink deep into your spirit. You are not a descendant of slaves. You are a descendant of millionaires who were robbed. You are not poor because you're inferior. You're poor because your inheritance was stolen. You don't lack a work ethic. Your great-grandfather built a 54-room hotel from $3. That's in your blood. That's in your DNA. That's in your heritage. The Bible promises restoration. Not just judgment, not just vindication. Restoration. Listen to Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 37. Thus saith the Lord, I will gather them out of all countries, whither I have driven them, and I will bring them again unto this place. Gathered from the diaspora. Brought back. Verse 42. Like as I have brought all this great evil upon this people, so will I bring upon them all the good that I have promised them. All the good, all the prosperity, all the wealth. Jeremiah chapter 24, verse 6. I will set mine eyes upon them for good, and I will bring them again to this land, and I will build them, and not pull them down, and I will plant them, and not pluck them up. Built and planted, not destroyed. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 4. They shall build the old wastes, they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities. Rebuild, restore, reclaim. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 26. I will multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. Multiplied, increased, not decreased. Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 42 through 44. As I have brought all this evil upon this people, so will I bring upon them all the good that I have promised them. And fields shall be bought for money, and deeds shall be subscribed and sealed, and witnesses shall be taken. I will restore their fortunes, declares the Lord. Deeds signed, sealed, witnessed. Fortunes restored. That's not suggestion. That's promise. That's prophecy. And prophecy doesn't fail. You are a descendant of J.B. Stradford. You carry the brilliance of James Hemings. You inherit the royalty of King Afonso. You are the seed of King Henri Christophe. You come from Captain Cudjoe's warriors. You are Israel. You are chosen. You are owed. These millionaires aren't gone. They're returning now, not physically, in you, through you, as you. Their wealth is coming back through you. The Bible doesn't just predict theft, it promises restoration. Deuteronomy chapter 28. Curses are breaking, right now, this moment. As you hear these words, black pride isn't arrogance, it's recognition, not supremacy, acknowledgement of what was stolen. Black pride isn't about being better, it's about remembering we were already rich before they made us forget. Every time someone asks, "Where's Black Wall Street?" you answer, "You burned it." Every time someone questions reparations, you ask, "Have you repaid the Stradford family, the Hemings family Haiti? Have you returned the 21 billion? Have you compensated the 3 billion from Tulsa?" Then don't talk to me about moving on. The silence ends with you. The eraser only works when we let it, and we're not letting it anymore. If this truth is hitting you right now, if you feel your ancestors stirring in your spirit, I need you to do something. Right now. Don't wait. Comment the word restoration if you believe this wealth is coming back. Comment, "I am Israel," if your spirit is confirming you're part of this story. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this truth is spreading. Drop a fire emoji if you're still with me. Share this video. Not tomorrow. Now. Your cousin who thinks black people were always poor, send this. Your child whose learning lies in school, show them the real history. Your parents who never learned this, they need to see it. This isn't just information. This is your inheritance. Pass it on. You're not just watching a video. You're witnessing the return of stolen knowledge. You are part of this story. Your ancestors, the Stradfords, the Hemings, the Christophs, they're counting on you to remember. This is not rebellion. This is restoration. This is your birthright coming back. Jeremiah chapter 32 verse 44 says, "Deeds will be signed, sealed, and witnessed. I will restore their fortunes." That's happening now, and you're a witness. Don't let this moment pass. Don't let the algorithm bury this like they buried your history. Hit that share button like your ancestors' names depend on it. Because they do. We're at the end, but this is just the beginning for you. If you want more hidden truths like this, truths that connect Black history to biblical prophecy, you need to subscribe and turn on all notifications. This channel is your source for what they don't teach in schools, what they erased from textbooks, what they buried in archives. Next video, we're exposing more Black millionaires they erased. Names you've never heard, fortunes that vanished, cities that were destroyed. You have a choice right now. Accept this truth or continue in deception. You can close this video and pretend you didn't learn what you learned. Or you can stand on this truth. Your ancestors didn't have a choice when they burned their wealth. But you have a choice now. Your mission, and this is critical, pass this truth to the next generation. Screenshot moments from this video. Make posts. Start conversations. When your family gathers, tell the story of J.B. Stradford, of James Hemings, of King Christophe. Become a walking archive. Become the library they couldn't burn. This is spiritual warfare. The enemy wanted you ignorant. You're now armed with knowledge. They tried to erase your identity. You're now reclaiming it. Ephesians chapter 6. Put on the full armor of God. This knowledge is part of that armor. Isaiah chapter 61 verse 4. They will rebuild the ancient ruins. That's you. The erased millionaires return now. Not physically, but through your awakening. You're the restoration generation. You're the ones who rebuild what they burned. Your ancestors are counting on you. Stradford's grandchildren didn't know his name, but your children will know yours as the one who broke the silence. You are a link in the chain. Don't break it. This is your inheritance. Claim it, protect it, pass it on. Subscribe now. Share now. Comment now. The algorithm is watching. Show it this message matters. Black pride awakens starting with you. Let's close in prayer. If you're watching, pray this with me. Out loud if you can. Most High God Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of our ancestors who were kings and queens and builders, we thank you for unveiling what has been hidden for centuries. We thank you that ashes still spell names, that DNA doesn't forget, that truth survives. Protect us as we walk in this truth. Protect us from those who profit from lies. Cover us with your armor as we expose what was buried. Help us recognize the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28 so we can break them. Open our eyes to see we are Israel scattered, but not forgotten. Remind us we are not poor by nature, but robbed by design. Let our children know they come from millionaires, not just survivors. We claim Jeremiah chapter 32 verse 42. As you brought calamity, now give us all the prosperity you promised. We claim Jeremiah chapter 32 verse 44. Let deeds be signed, sealed, witnessed in our names again. We claim Isaiah chapter 61 verse 4. We will rebuild the ancient ruins they burned. We claim Ezekiel chapter 37 verse 26. Increase us in numbers, strength, and wealth. Restore the fortunes stolen from Stradford Hemings, Christophe, Afonso, Cudjoe. Restore them through us. We ask for your judgment on systems that stole and erased. Let those who profit from our ancestors' stolen wealth be held accountable. Not vengeance, Lord, but justice. Biblical justice. Break every legal document signed in theft. Cancel every debt imposed in malice. Awaken our people from the sleep of forgetfulness. Let this message spread like fire, unquenchable, unstoppable. Raise up a generation that knows who they are, whose they are, and what they're owed. Give us strength to carry this truth without fear. Give us wisdom to share it with those ready to hear. Make us walking libraries, living testimonies, breathing archives. Use us to restore what was stolen, rebuild what was burned, reclaim what was erased. We are Israel. We are chosen. We are royal. We are owed. We declare the return of erased millionaires through us in us as us. The silence ends today. The restoration begins now. In the name of Yeshua, Yahweh's Son, the one who came to set captives free, we pray. Amen. Walk in this truth. You are descendants of millionaires. You are free. Now go and build.